Today is April 15th. This is officially tax day when all adults have to pay their taxes, although I think there was an extension because of the winter storm. But that's beside the point. Okay, so don't forget you need to be practicing your benchmark fractions, decimals, and percent each day. You can set this up to where you look at the decimals and percents first. And so, what is equivalent to 50 hundredths or 50%? That would be 1/2. And so you can go through and practice your flashcards like that as well. Okay, today we are doing multiplication and division equations. We are reviewing this concept. This is something we've already studied quite a bit and have tested on. And the major focus for equations is knowing that both sides are equal, both expressions are equal, and you can use inverse operations to solve for unknown amounts, which are actually indicated by variables. We need to know that these letters are unknown amounts. The numbers in front of them are called coefficients, and that means that 2 is being multiplied by an unknown number, 4 is being multiplied by an unknown number, and then if there's a number just by itself, that's called a constant. All three of these things are called terms, so these are all things that we need to be aware of. These three things together are also going to be called an expression as well. Okay. Please watch this video if you need a lot of information about division and multiplication expressions and equations. You can review that. You can also look through these examples. This is using cups and counters to show how to solve 2x is equivalent to 6. Please read through all of this now. Okay, let's go to the textbook. Very briefly, the gist of it is just like in addition and subtraction equations, we use the inverse to make sure that the equation stays equal, but to solve for the variables. So if you were to divide both sides by the same number, it's going to continue to be an equation. It will continue to be equal. 18 is equal to 18, so 18 divided by 6, 18 divided by 6 is the same as 3 equals 3. So if I divide both of these sides of the equation by 3, I can get rid of this 3. Now this is not a zero pair. 3 divided by 3 is equivalent to 1, and so 1x is equivalent to 12 divided by 3, which is 4. That's the division property of equality. And so the same thing is true for the multiplication property of equality. If you multiply both sides by the same number, it's going to continue to stay equal. 3 is equal to 3. 6 times 3 is equal to 6 times 3, and that's equal to 18 and 18. So if we have something like this where we have x divided by 4, if we multiply both sides by 4, again, we get that 4 over 4 situation. That's not a zero pair. 4 over 4 is equivalent to 1. And 1x is equivalent to 7 times 4, and that is 28. Okay, let's do some practice word problems together. Just problems. The first thing we have to remember is that an equation has two expressions that are equal on either side. So we take what the story is telling us and then we translate that into symbols and numbers. The length of an object in feet is equal to 3 times its length in yards. The length of a water slide is 48 feet. Write and solve a multiplication equation to find the length of the water slide in yards. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at some important information here. The first thing it tells us is the length of an object in feet is equal to 3 times the length in yards. Okay, so we need to write an equal sign over here. So 3 times, and I'm going to use x to represent yards. 3 times the number of yards is equal to the number of feet. And then it does tell us here how many feet will that be equal to. And that answer is 48. So 3 times something is equal to 48. How are we going to figure out how many yards this is going to be? Because that's what we actually are being asked to find. We want to know the length of the water slide in yards. So what operation do we need to do to get the number unknown number x by itself? Answer that for me, please. Very good. We're going to divide both sides by 3. So then we're going to end up with x being equal to whatever 48 divided by 3 is. What is 48 divided by 3? What number times 3 equals 48? Answer that, please. Now, if you know your basic facts, you may already know this, but you can also just go ahead and divide it. So how many times will 3 go into 4? And then continue. What's the answer going to be? Exactly, the answer is going to be 16 yards. All right, let's look at the second guided practice problem. It says that Chen is buying a ham. He wants to divide it into 6 and 5/10 ounce servings for 12 people. Write and solve a division equation to find what size ham he should buy. So we're going to divide the ham into 6.5 ounce servings for 12 people. So I need to go ahead and write my equation. So something is going to be equal to enough food to serve 12 people. So what will the division problem be? We want to divide the ham, whatever size that ham is, into how much per serving? Answer that, please. Very good. So the ham is going to be divided into 6 and 5/10 servings. So everything is right here in the problem, just like with yards and feet. One ham divided into 6 and 5/10 pieces should serve 12 people. How big is this ham going to be? What do we do to get rid of the 6 and 5/10? What operation is the inverse of what's happening right now? Please answer that. Very good. That's going to be multiplication. So we're going to multiply this side by 6 and 5/10. And that means we have to multiply this side by 6 and 5/10 also. So in order to solve this, go ahead and do that operation. What is 6 and 5/10 times 12? Answer that, please. Okay, so our ham is going to have to be at least 78 ounces. Okay, so let's do one more problem together. In the diagram below, angle ABC is divided into 4 angles of equal measure, and measure of ABC is 140 degrees. Write and solve 2 equations that can be used to find the degree measure of angle EBF. Identify any properties of equalities that you use to solve either equation. Okay, we have to write 2 different equations and then figure out what properties would help solve for x in each one. Now, since it's said that every one of these angles is equal, we know that we have equal groups repeated over and over again, or something cut into equal groups. That's multiplication and division. So let's write one multiplication equation and one division equation. So looking at this picture here, we have this angle is equal to x. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 of those equivalent angles. So 4 times x is equal to, and what should be on the other side of the equation? Go back into the word problem and figure out what all 4 of these angles are equal to. Very good. It's right here. 140. So that's one equation. 4 times x is equal to 140 because it says that angle ABC, this big angle here, is equal to 140. So that is the multiplication way to write that equation, but we can also do a division way of that. So this one angle here, x, is equivalent to what? How would we write the other side of that expression? Okay, so this one piece is equivalent to 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. Okay, so If there are 4 pieces, what would I have to divide those 4 pieces by to equal that x? What will this number up here be? Answer that, please. Very good. It's also going to be 140 degrees divided by 4 pieces is going to be equal to that 1x. So these are the two different equations. One of them is a multiplication equation, and the other one would be a division equation. Now, what property would I use to solve? If I were to try to solve this first equation, 4x is equal to 140, what is the inverse operation that would get x by itself? So what property would that be? Answer that for me, please. Very good. We would end up having to divide both sides by 4, so that would be the division property of equality. Now let's look at this next equation. Do I have to use a property to even solve for this? X is already by itself. There's no property needed. So all we have to do to solve this is to just simply do the computation. So let's take the number 140 and go ahead and divide that by 4. And what is that going to be? Please answer that for me. Okay, so taking this multiplication equation, we divide both sides by 4. 140 divided by 4 is 35 degrees. So x is equal to 35 degrees, and we use the division property to solve that. All right, let's think about what something important to remember about multiplication and division equations might be. To do that, let's go ahead and review what we've talked about today. As we scan back through some of the notes that we've talked about, please think about what something important to remember might be. We talked about multiplication and division equations, what each part of the equation is called, what coefficients, variables, and constants and terms mean. We have looked at various examples of how to solve division and multiplication problems. We reviewed what division property of equality means, what the multiplication property of equality means. So think of all of those things. What would be the most important thing to remember about today's lesson? Answer that thoughtfully, please. Thank you for being thoughtful. Please come to class so we can do some practicing together to get ready for the STAR test, to get ready for 7th grade. If you're not sure how to do some of this stuff, you need to ask questions in class or come to Math Help. Thank you.